how Seneca's philosophy redefines living in a fleeting world. The eternal wisdom of Seneca in a world obsessed with the temporary. Imagine this: everything you've ever built, loved, or strived for gone in a moment. A fire sweeps through your home, a relationship shatters overnight, or a financial collapse undoes years of work. Now pause. What if I told you that even in the face of these catastrophes, you could remain unshaken? That your sense of peace and purpose could remain intact? Seneca, the legendary Stoic philosopher, believed this wasn't just possible, it was essential. Let me start with a personal story. Picture a man standing on the edge of ruin. Not metaphorical ruin, but literal. His business partner betrayed him. His finances were wiped out, and he stared at the possibility of homelessness. This man, instead of collapsing into despair, wrote a letter, not a cry for help but a declaration of resilience. In that letter, he paraphrased one of Seneca's most profound lessons. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. You see, Seneca's philosophy isn't abstract. It's not about lofty ideals confined to ancient Rome. It's raw, practical, and deeply human. He teaches us to live in a fleeting world by mastering one simple truth: control what you can and let go of what you cannot. Pause for a moment and think. What are you holding on to right now that you cannot control? Is it the fear of losing your job? The hope that someone will change for you? The anxiety of what others think? Seneca challenges us to confront these attachments, not to reject life's pleasures but to redefine how we relate to them. He invites us to live with a peculiar kind of detachment, not coldness, but freedom. Seneca once wrote to his friend Lucilius, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." Let's break this down. In a society like ours, drowning in consumerism and the constant chase for more, Seneca's words hit harder than ever. We fill our homes with objects, our schedules with commitments, and our hearts with expectations, all while ignoring the fleeting nature of it all. But what if we embraced the idea that everything we possess, including our lives, is borrowed? Imagine holding a glass of water, knowing it might slip through your fingers at any moment. Would you savor it differently? This is what Seneca teaches, memento mori. Remember, you will die. Far from being morbid, this reflection is liberating. By accepting the impermanence of everything, we free ourselves to live fully in the present. Take a deep breath. This moment, right here, is all you truly have. Let me ask you, if you knew your time was limited, truly limited, how would you live differently? Seneca's insights aren't limited to philosophy. They extend to practical action. He advises us to divide our days wisely, part for study, part for reflection, and part for the present moment. When was the last time you truly lived in the moment? Not distracted by notifications, not lost in the past or future, but fully here. As we move deeper into his teachings, Seneca offers a lens through which to view adversity. He argues that suffering isn't an interruption to life but an integral part of it. Think about that. What if every setback, every failure, was not a step away from happiness but toward a deeper understanding of it? I want to share with you one of Seneca's most beautiful metaphors. He compares life to a play. What matters is not the length of the play, but the excellence of the acting. This hits hard, doesn't it? We often obsess over longevity, more years, more success, more validation. But what if our focus shifted to the quality of our moments instead of their quantity? Here's a challenge for you. How would you act if you knew this was your last scene? Would you choose kindness over anger? Courage over fear? Seneca also reminds us of the power of perspective. When confronted with tragedy, he suggests we ask, what part of this is within my control? This isn't just a rhetorical exercise. It's a lifeline. The next time you face a crisis, try this. Write down 2 columns. One for what you can control and one for what you can't. Focus entirely on the first column. It sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. Seneca's life was no stranger to chaos. Exiled by Emperor Claudius, forced to navigate the treacherous politics of Nero's court, and ultimately ordered to take his own life. He faced challenges that would break most of us. Yet, he remained steadfast. Why? Because he understood something profound. The external world is unpredictable, but the internal world is ours to govern. Imagine applying this today. You lose your job. Instead of spiraling into despair, you see it as an opportunity to reevaluate your path. Your partner leaves you. Instead of clinging to bitterness, you focus on cultivating self-love and independence. Seneca's teachings are not about suppressing emotion. They are about mastering it. He doesn't tell us to avoid grief or pain, but to experience them fully, without letting them dominate us. This is the essence of living in a fleeting world. Not to avoid loss, but to embrace life despite it. As we close this part, let me leave you with a question. If you lost everything tomorrow, what would remain? The art of letting go, Seneca's radical freedom. Imagine holding a handful of sand. The tighter you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. This is how most of us live, clinging to people, possessions, and even ideas, only to lose them in the end. Seneca understood this deeply, and his philosophy offers us a radical alternative: freedom through letting go. But what does it mean to let go? Does it mean giving up on life or becoming indifferent to what we care about? Not at all. Letting go, in Seneca's terms, is about changing our relationship with what we value. It's about loving what we have while knowing we don't truly own it. Think about this for a moment. What are you afraid to lose right now? A job? A loved one? Your reputation? What if the fear of losing these things is a greater burden than the loss itself? Seneca teaches us that the root of suffering is attachment. Not the love we feel, but the illusion that we can control what happens to what we love. He once wrote, "He who is brave is free." But this bravery isn't about recklessness. It's about accepting life's uncertainties without resistance. Let's explore how this looks in practice. Picture yourself waking up one day to find that everything you've built is gone. The house you worked for, the career you dedicated decades to, the relationships you held dear, all vanished. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? But Seneca would ask, did these things ever truly belong to you? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Everything we think we own, our possessions, our status, even our bodies, is borrowed. Life itself is on loan. Instead of fighting this reality, Seneca encourages us to embrace it. He uses a powerful metaphor. Life is like a banquet. We are guests, not owners. The food, the wine, the company, they're all temporary gifts. When it's time to leave, we don't cling to the table. We rise gracefully and express gratitude for the experience. This mindset is transformative. Imagine approaching every aspect of your life with the gratitude of a guest. How would it change the way you interact with your loved ones, your work, your daily routines? Seneca's idea of freedom also applies to how we handle loss. He believed that grief, though natural, should not consume us. He wrote, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." On the surface, this might seem bleak, but it's profoundly liberating. If we accept that loss is an intrinsic part of life, we can stop fighting it and start living fully. Now, think about the last time you lost something or someone significant. Did the pain come from the loss itself, or from your resistance to it? Seneca challenges us to let go of this resistance. He doesn't suggest suppressing our emotions, far from it. Instead, he asks us to feel them deeply, but not let them rule us. This is the Stoic paradox: to live with full passion and yet remain unattached. Let me share a story from Seneca's own life. When his only son died, Seneca mourned deeply, but he did not let his grief paralyze him. Instead, he saw the event as a reminder of life's impermanence. He wrote, "The wise man looks at everything as if it were fleeting and fragile." Here's a challenge for you. The next time you face a loss, big or small, pause. Instead of resisting the pain, ask yourself, what can this teach me about life's impermanence? Seneca also believed that letting go applies not just to material things but to our expectations. So much of our suffering comes from unmet expectations. A promotion that didn't happen, a friend who let us down, a dream that didn't come true. What if we could free ourselves from these expectations altogether? This doesn't mean abandoning ambition or hope. It means aligning our expectations with reality. Seneca puts it simply, align yourself with what is, not what you wish it to be. Imagine how much lighter life would feel if you stopped expecting it to follow your script. Instead of being disappointed by what doesn't happen, you'd learn to appreciate what does. Let me ask you, how often do you let unmet expectations rob you of joy in the present? Seneca's philosophy also touches on a deeper kind of freedom. Freedom from ourselves. He believed that the greatest obstacle to happiness is not the external world but our own minds. Our fears, desires, and anxieties, these are the true prisons. He gives us a key to escape, self-awareness. By examining our thoughts and emotions, we can understand their roots and loosen their grip. For example, when you feel anger, ask yourself, is this anger about the situation or my expectation of it? This practice isn't easy, but it's life-changing. The more we understand ourselves, the more we can let go of the illusions that bind us. As we close this part, think about this. What if the freedom you seek is already within you, waiting to be unlocked? Living lightly, the joy of embracing impermanence. Picture a child playing with a delicate soap bubble. They chase it, laugh at its shimmer, and marvel at its beauty, even knowing it will soon pop. Seneca believed we should live our lives with the same lightness and joy, embracing impermanence rather than fearing it. But how do we achieve this? How do we find joy in a world that feels so fragile, so fleeting? Seneca starts by urging us to shift our perspective. Instead of seeing impermanence as a threat, we should see it as an invitation to live fully. He wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." This isn't about cramming our days with endless tasks. It's about filling them with meaning. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your time is spent on things that truly matter to you? For Seneca, living lightly begins with clarity, understanding what is within our control and focusing our energy there. This is the Stoic principle of the dichotomy of control. It's not just a tool for resilience, it's a blueprint for joy. Think about how much time we waste worrying about things beyond our influence, other people's opinions, the outcomes of our efforts, or the unpredictable twists of fate. What if, instead, we focused entirely on our actions, our choices, and our character? Here's an exercise for you. Make a list of the things you've worried about this week. Now divide them into two categories: things you can control and things you can't. Let go of the second list completely. Seneca also teaches us that living lightly means finding joy in simplicity. In a letter to Lucilius, he wrote, "A wise man is content with little, for he knows how to enjoy the smallest things." Imagine finding happiness not in grand achievements, but in the simple pleasures of daily life. A shared laugh, a moment of quiet, the warmth of sunlight on your face. When was the last time you paused to truly savor a small, beautiful moment? Seneca challenges us to rethink our relationship with time. He believed that most people waste their lives not because they lack time but because they misuse it. We fill our days with distractions, procrastination, and shallow pursuits, all while neglecting what truly enriches us. He puts it starkly, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." In other words, we live as if life will never end while fearing its inevitable end. What if we reversed this mindset? What if we embraced mortality as a reminder to live deeply and intentionally? Imagine waking up each morning with a clear purpose, knowing that this day, this moment is a gift. What would you do differently? For Seneca, living lightly also means letting go of the need for validation. So much of our energy is spent seeking approval from others, whether it's through our achievements, appearance, or social media presence. But Seneca reminds us, "What progress have I made? I am beginning to be my own friend." This is a radical idea. To live not for the applause of others, but for the quiet satisfaction of aligning with our own values. Think about it. How often do you let the opinions of others dictate your choices? Seneca's wisdom extends to how we face the inevitable: death. He believed that by contemplating our mortality, we could free ourselves from its grip. This isn't about being morbid. It's about living with clarity and courage. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Imagine approaching your life as a finite resource, not to be hoarded but to be spent wisely and joyfully. Let me ask you, if you knew you had only 1 year left to live, how would you spend it? Seneca also encourages us to embrace impermanence in our relationships. He believed that by recognizing the fleeting nature of our connections, we could love more deeply and without attachment. When we cling to people, we risk turning love into possession. But when we accept that every bond is temporary, we can cherish it for what it is, a gift, not a guarantee. Think about someone you love. What would change if you treated every interaction with them as if it might be your last? As we close this journey, remember that Seneca's philosophy isn't about detachment from life but engagement with it. It's about living lightly, not in the sense of taking life less seriously, but in the sense of carrying it with grace. So, let me leave you with one final question. What would your life look like if you lived it not as a struggle to hold on, but as a celebration of letting go?